What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to TTP Sports. Happy opening day, happy opening weekend of 2020. And it was a very exciting day leading up to the first two games of the regular season for Major League Baseball. And just anticipating these games starting from the past week and a half with the little taste we got from the exhibition games and the inter-squad games. They were good, but they weren't enough to satisfy the fans' craving for real sports. Now you're back into the regular season, and every game matters going into this point for baseball. It's the icing on the cake. It's the icing on the cake for the fans. And you get two games on tap for tonight. You had the Yankees versus the Nationals. You had the Giants versus the Dodgers. Gerrit Cole's first appearance in a Yankees uniform. Mookie Betts' first appearance in a Dodgers uniform after signing that major extension. That's a big-time extension, and it's the second highest paid contract in sports under Mike Trout's. And it was just a very exciting day. I was anticipating this day the entire week. A lot of people were. And it's just, finally this day was here when we actually got to watch some baseball. And there was some news regarding the new playoff format that's going to be implemented this season. But I'm going to get to that a little bit later. But let's talk about the games that were played today. So we had the Washington Nationals versus the New York Yankees. And the Nationals, they were celebrating their World Series championship from last year after they beat the Astros in 7 games. And it was a little weird at first because, granted, there's going to be no fans this year. And the Nationals, they were raising the banner. They were watching their video of of winning the World Series, their video right there, just to celebrate the 2019 World Champions. And it just felt a little off. Just because they didn't have that chance to celebrate it with the fans there at home on opening day. But granted, in the times that we're in due to COVID, we have to make those precautions in order to keep everyone safe. So it's understandable, but at that point, it just felt a little bit weird. But hey, they won the World Series, they can celebrate it. It's going to feel weird going for a couple games for this regular season, but I feel like at this point, we have to get used to it because this is going to be the new norm for a little bit until we can get back to some sort of normalcy in the near future. But we're just going to have to deal with what we're at right now. And like I said, it's still weird seeing no fans in the stands and you're getting that automated fan noise. And it's weird. Like I said, it's weird. But granted, off of that, let's get into the actual game. And this game really just described opening day at the end of July in the year of 2020, because 2020 is a really screwed up year. So we get opening day. We get the first game of the season. We get Max Scherzer versus Gerrit Cole. Stanton hits an absolute bomb off Scherzer to start the game. Adam Eaton for the Nationals. He hit the bomb too. And that was the only run for the Nationals during that entire game. And we get into the 5th inning. The Yankees put on a couple more runs to make it 4-1. And the rain starts coming down. The tarp comes onto the field. And we get a rain delay on opening day. And then granted, this is the icing on the cake right there. The game gets called in the 5th inning just because of the weather. So the Yankees win that game by a score of 4-1 in the 5th inning. Both pitchers get a complete game actually going the full 5 innings. And that was just funny at that point. And then you're going to the Dodgers and the Giants. They're currently playing as I speak. The Dodgers are currently just steamrolling the Giants at this point. So the Dodgers look like they're going to win that game as I speak right now. But let's get into the news, like I said, regarding the playoff format, because I want to talk about how this ties into the Phillies and how I think their playoff chances are possibly increased with this new playoff format. So it was agreed upon today that the MLB was going to expand on the playoff format from the original 10 teams to 16 teams. So this talks was originally discussed during the conversations between the Players Association and the owners when they were trying to get the regular season back and running. So those talks were going about, but they weren't really agreeing on to anything right there. So it was going to be originally the 10-team format, but then today to discuss, they agreed upon expanding that format, bringing it to 16 teams. And this is where it gets a little weird. It gets a little odd for some people this is definitely going to be a one-season thing just because, granted, we're in a 60-game season, and it's going to be making a much profit on the playoffs as well, so the MLB wants to make as much money as possible. But this can also lead to some sort of excitement, but just looking at it from first glance, it's odd. It is very, very odd. So there's going to be 8 teams making the postseason from each league. And so you're going to get your standard division winners in the East, Central, and West divisions. But then every team that finishes in second place, they're going to get an automatic bid into the postseason as well. And then the last two teams in each league, they're going to be the wild card spots, with basically going off who has the best record out of those final two teams. So it's going to be 8 teams from each league. And no team has an automatic bid into the division series. There's going to be, the way that they were discussing it, it's going to be some type of preliminary round before we get into the actual division series. So this preliminary round is going to be a best of 3 game series for each series that goes on, and every team has to play in it. So if you're, say, the New York Yankees or the Los Angeles Dodgers, and you are the favorites to win the World Series this year, which granted they are, and you win your division, and you have to play this preliminary round, and you don't get that automatic bid into the division series. So, say, just granted, this is all speculation at this point. Like, this is all just hypothetical. So, say if the Dodgers, Yankees, they go into this preliminary round, they already won the division, and they started to get a little bit of a slump going into the end of the season. Same thing with the Yankees, they go in that little bit of a slump. And they go up against the team, say, like, that won the wild card spot, and they have to face them in this preliminary round. Say it's a team like, I'm trying to just throw a random team that's probably not going to be that good. Say the Texas Rangers, if you're the Yankees, and if you're the Los Angeles Dodgers, you have to go up against, I would say, it's going to be hard right there. I would say, just say the Phillies right there. I'm going to put the Phillies right there, just because why not? So, if the Dodgers go off that little bit of a skid, same thing with the Yankees. What if the teams like the Rangers and the Phillies, they get a little bit of a hot streak going on at the end of the season, and they play each other in the preliminary round? Say, like, one of the Phillies pitchers, they get hot going into the end of the season and into this preliminary round. Same thing with the lineup, and same thing could be said about the Texas Rangers. And with the cold slump that the Yankees and the Dodgers that they are in, hypothetically, what if the team that's hot beats the Yankees and the Dodgers? So you're basically looking at a possible worst team can beat a really good team. And this playoff format right here, it does not benefit teams who win the division, because you do not get that automatic bid into the division series. So it's like I said, you can possibly see a team that was not expected to make the playoffs in the original 10-team format beat a team that could possibly be a World Series favorite at this point. Those can definitely be the scenarios that happen. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but it could happen, because it's 2020 and anything could happen at this point. It's 2020. And if you're just looking at each of the division teams that are expected to be the division winners, so if you're looking at the NL East, you got the Braves that are expected to win it, the NL Central. It's really, with that division, at the flip of the coin. You got teams like the Brewers, the Cubs, the Cardinals. You can throw in the Reds at this point. There's a lot of teams in that division that could win it. And if you look at the NL West, the Dodgers are the automatic favorite right there. They're one of the teams that are favorited to win the World Series. If you go towards the American League, you got the Yankees in the AL East. They are the favorite to win the World Series and to win their division. If you look at the AL Central, you got the Twins right there. You got the Indians. You can factor in the White Sox too. And if you look at the AL West, you got the Astros. Even though they were going through that whole cheating scandal, they are still a very good team. They are a very complete team that can compete for a World Series. But then you got the teams under them, like the Angels, who just acquired Anthony Rendon, and they're going to have a full healthy season, possibly from Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. And then you got teams like the Oakland Athletics that can possibly get out of losing in that first wild card game back-to-back seasons. So it's just like, I feel like this format just does not favor the first place teams that win the division. I feel like it's just not going to do that. And I feel like a lot of the first place teams are going to get screwed over. Not saying it's going to happen, but it's a very high possibility that this could happen. And just factoring in what I feel like, how this could benefit the Phillies, because I feel like this could benefit the Phillies a lot. Because if this was the original 10-team format, I was not going to give the Phillies any type of chances whatsoever, just because I feel like there's too many holes within this team. If you're looking at the pitching staff, yes, you have your 1-2 in Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler. But if you look at the end of the rotation, you got your number 3 in Jake Arrieta. Can you trust him being healthy and consistent this year? And if you look at your 4th and 5th spot, are you going to go with another season with Vince Velasquez, Nick Pivetta, and or Zach Eflin? Yes, credited that Vince Velasquez, he looked really good in the exhibition games and the inter-squad games, but It's basically, for him, I have to see some type of consistency in the regular season before I believe anything, because I don't want to get overhyped for that and then eventually get disappointed once again. And Nick Pivetta, he's just Nick Pivetta. He gets overhyped into this breakout Pivetta every single beginning of the season, and it just doesn't happen. And with Zach Eflin, he starts out really good one time, and then you just don't know what's going to happen the next outing. It's just off and on with Zach Eflin, and that comes back towards consistency. Can the bottom end of the rotation be consistent going into this season? And then going into the bullpen, you just don't know, because the Phillies really don't have those guys coming out of the bullpen besides like Hector Neris, even though Hector Neris does make me very afraid. And then if you're looking at the lineup, I feel like our lineup is a lot more deeper this season, but then the credit, it comes back to consistency. Can a lot of players in this lineup be consistent, i.e. Rhys Hoskins? Can he find some consistency in the batter's box this year and not look lost at the plate? That's going to be one of the major keys going into this season, because I do expect players like Bryce Harper to have a really good year, players like JT Realmuto in a contract year to have a really good season. It's just that I feel like our pitching is going to be one of our downsides, and even I feel like we're still a good enough team to get around that 500 route, and you could be a 500 team this year and possibly have a really good chance of making the playoffs, especially, I would say, in the National League. Credited, I would say the toughest division this year is going to be the NL Central, just because I feel like there's not one cut clear favorite to win that division. So I feel like it's going to be a lot tougher there, but I feel like the Phillies' chances, if the Phillies can get off to a hot enough start, and credit, they have gotten off to very hot starts in the previous 2 seasons under the Gabe Kapler era, and if the Phillies can get off to a hot start once again this season, they could find themselves in a race for the division and possibly even a second place or a wild card spot. It's going to benefit a lot of teams actually this year. Who's going to get off to that hot start? Who's going to remain consistent? And if you get off to maybe a little bit of a sluggish start, but then you pick it up after that, you can find yourself in a playoff push. And it's going to be that type of season going down the road, basically, because every single game matters for every single team. Credit, there are going to be teams that you expect not to make the playoffs, the bottom tier teams like the Marlins, like the Pirates. You can factor in the Colorado Rockies, the San Francisco Giants. If you look at the American League, you can factor in Boston too. You can factor in Baltimore. They're going to be an obvious one. Kansas City, Detroit. It's just going to be, those are the type of teams you don't expect to make the playoffs. But the teams that are basically the mediocre teams and maybe like the tweener teams that you can expect to possibly make the playoffs. If I'm looking at the NL East from a standpoint right here, because I'm a Philadelphia Phillies fan, credit, I'm going to give the Braves the division spot just because I feel like the Braves are the best team in the division. And for second and third place, I know a lot of people are thinking the Nationals are going to be relatively similar to what they were last year. I feel like with a lot of players opting out this year, with Ryan Zimmerman and Juan Soto just got diagnosed with COVID, even though he is asymptomatic right now, he's going to miss a little bit of time right there. I don't feel like the Nationals are going to be the same this year. And also, they just lost Anthony Rendon last year to the Angels. So they're missing some key pieces in their infield. And watching that game against the Yankees today, their defense in the infield was not that good. So I think the lineup for the Nationals is going to be okay, and their pitching is going to be dominant because they have one of the best staffs in the entire baseball, basically. And I feel like they're going to be okay from that standpoint, but I don't feel like they're going to be competing for the division. I'd find them more in second place, third place, or even a wild card spot at that point. And it's basically the same thing for the Phillies and another team like the Mets. Are the Mets going to get off to a hot start, or are they going to get off to a cold start like in previous seasons? It's like I said, it's going to be one of those years where the teams at the beginning of the season, they have to get off to a hot start, and they have to keep that consistency going towards the end of the year if they want to find themselves into the playoffs. And for the Phillies, even though I do feel like they have holes in their team, I feel like the 16-team playoff format benefits them a lot more because they can get off to that hot start and they can find themselves in either a second place or a wild card spot if they get hot enough. And I feel like with Joe Girardi behind the bench, I feel like he can help the Phillies even more. And same thing with players in the lineup. I feel like Bryce Harper is going to have a good year. JT Realmuto in a contract year, I feel like he's going to play his ass off. Aaron Nola, he definitely does not want to replicate what he did last season. And I feel like with Zach Wheeler, with the money he's getting paid right now, with the contract that he signed with the Phillies, I feel like he's going to want to prove something. But still, with the end of the rotation, I'm still iffy about that. Even though young guys like Spencer Howard, even though he was sent down, he is eventually going to get called up a little bit earlier on in the season, like maybe a couple weeks into it. Maybe he finds himself into the rotation. Maybe players like Alec Boehm, I think he was one of the guys sent down too. He can find himself in the Major League roster in a few weeks like Spencer Howard would. So it's going to be one of those seasons where teams that just have to get off to that hot start and keep that consistency. And that's where the Phillies need to be if they want to find themselves in a second place spot or in a wild card spot. So that's going to do it for this video right here. What are your thoughts about opening day today, about the games that were played, the Yankees, Nationals, the Dodgers, Giants? What are your thoughts on the new playoff format? How do you think that benefits your team or it benefits the Phillies if you're a Phillies fan? So don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time.